Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar entitled Bring Your Data to Life with Integrated GIS. My name is Eric Lovell. I am an account manager on our nonprofit and global organizations team with ESRI. And I'm joined here today by my colleague Adam Pfister, solution engineer, also on the nonprofit and global organizations team, based out of our Chicago office. And before we start, I will note that this webinar is being recorded. And we'll be posting the recording on ESRI's Sustainable Development YouTube channel and website. So we will generate a go-to webinar email to you whenever the webinar recording is live and available on our website and YouTube channel. And we certainly hope that you will share the webinar if you find some meaningful content. Certainly share within your organization and within your broader community. And in addition to accessing the webinar recording on the website and on the YouTube channel, you can also check out both of those resources to watch previous webinars and to sign up to receive future updates or to receive updates on future events for both our webinar series and beyond. In this webinar today, we will be exploring what we see as a modern GIS and unpacking what we mean by the notion of an integrated GIS. I'll then be turning over to Adam, who will be providing a demonstration on the integrated nature of the ArcGIS suite of applications to show off a workflow of transforming tabular data into actionable information products such as operations dashboards and story maps. We'll also share some resources for expanding the way that your organization applies geography and transforms data into multi-dimensional visualizations and information products. Before we conclude, we will open the floor for your questions. So please feel free to use the question box in the GoToWebinar interface as your questions come up, and we'll try to do our best to address them at the end of the presentation. As a final note, before we get started, there is a short post-webinar survey that will give us feedback on this webinar and on planning for future webinar topics. We would greatly appreciate your time and response on this. Okay. As all of us experience on the daily basis, the pace of change in the world is accelerating, and it's doing so for many reasons. Some of these are driven by data and technology, while others are driven by demographic change and environmental shifts, as well as international policy. And in many ways, this is why we're all here. It's because we're concerned about the change, about how changes shape our and our next generation's collective futures. Here at ESRI, we believe that the power of GIS can support making the world a better place. There's tremendous opportunity to expand upon how and where you are applying digital geography in the face of these challenges. This includes engaging with citizens in our communities, protecting biodiversity, and designing more resilient strategies for the future. But we cannot do this with one tool or one platform, and we certainly cannot do this alone. Therefore, a key to unlocking impact really emerges as we integrate new technologies, new forms of data, and new ways to interact with and understand the world and society. In the last 5 to 10 years, there's been an ever-growing demand for location information and spatial data. Cloud computing has made it easy to support large GIS datasets, complex computing requirements for spatial analysis, and connectivity and access to GIS services anywhere. These forces are creating a new platform, what we are referring to as an integrated GIS, which is making GIS easier, more open, and more accessible. Being able to use spatial information helps us understand relationships between phenomena in a deeper way. And importantly, an integrated GIS helps us to share our stories in a richer, more multifaceted way. This is done by creating a platform that enables multiple static, dynamic, and interactive information products that convey not only spatial data, but non-spatial data, structured and unstructured data, photographs, videos, and a number of other data types and services. A modern GIS has wide application throughout your organization. This includes measurements, mapping, deep analytics, design, planning, collaboration, and ultimately creating action. And an integrated GIS is one that ties all of this together. It is about leveraging the power of geographic knowledge to manage our world better, whether in a small footprint in the planet or a whole community, a city, or country. ArcGIS, in particular, is advancing rapidly as well, with the integration of many data measurement and computing tools and advances in science. Part of our work at ESRI is to watch what's happening with the new trends, new technologies, and integrate them in to ArcGIS for you, for the user. We also take advantage of advancements in computing, not just faster machines, but also distributed machines. We also pay a lot of attention to interoperability. All of this means that ArcGIS is a comprehensive integrated platform. It is open and service-based, it is distributed and extendable. It supports not only large organizations or teams, but also the individual. And this is the foundation for delivering the capabilities across organizations. Many are doing so through applications, the kind of building blocks for this responsive system. This user-centric framework transforms the way that we can work together. It's based on concepts of sharing and collaboration, sharing information, using web services to distribute and to connect our knowledge across our communities with our collaborators to engage everyone. With ArcGIS, you can design and share workflow configurations to your liking that still harness the analytical power of conventional desktop GIS, such as ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, as well as the out-of-the-box apps that are lightweight and easy to share. GIS in this day and age is really about creating a language that transcends what was one time siloed dialogue in order to communicate with other data analytic systems. Similarly so, this means that ArcGIS must also understand the ever-evolving lexicon of data models and types. 21st century integration means that ArcGIS can ingest all data types. Of course, geospatial data, such as satellite imagery, but also tabular data, unstructured data, real-time data, and even LiDAR data. ArcGIS brings all of these data types together in order to create a common language. ArcGIS as an integrated system is also designed to be open. This is very important in a world of open source software, open tools, and open data. ArcGIS supports all of the open standards in our field. This includes OCG and ISO standards, It's also about integrating into new frontiers of science, open science libraries, such as R, Pandas, to bring together science for all of us to take advantage of in our efforts to make better decisions. Our software is also an open platform, including open APIs to allow developers to extend and build on top of our data and tools. With ever-emerging libraries to the new scientific tools available on GitHub, it is vital today to make sure pieces of our software are also open sourced on GitHub, and that is that we can remain an open and vibrant community. And the evidence of this strategy is really characterized by the countless complex implementations in a wide variety of environments. This includes implementations to the edge. So finally, integration for ESRI and ArcGIS is also about extending GIS to the edge with distributed edge computing and in edge devices. It means having a complete GIS system in ruggedized environments. This may be in the middle of a hurricane or perhaps on top of a vehicle. And while our webinar today focuses largely on the integrated nature of the ArcGIS platform, there is an expansive collection of other integration possibilities now and into the future that could not be made possible without ESRI's ever-growing partner network. So now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Adam, who will be demonstrating the integrated nature of ArcGIS in action to explore what it looks like to transform tabular data contained in a spreadsheet into actionable and dynamic information that can be fed into diverse information products to reach a wide variety of end users.
Thanks, Eric. I'd like to demonstrate to you today how you can use ArcGIS Online as an integrated solution to help you get your day-to-day work done. Let's start in ArcGIS Online. As part of the ESRI Geospatial Cloud, ArcGIS Online enables you to connect to people, locations, and data using interactive maps. You can work with smart, data-driven styles and intuitive analysis tools that help you deliver location intelligence and share these insights with the world or just with specific groups. So let's start where most people end up starting, and that is with a spreadsheet of data in Microsoft Excel. So here we have a spreadsheet on outbreaks of African swine fever. This data is observational. It records a location, a time, and some additional attributes. We want to visualize it. We want to turn these rows into points on a map. We can do that by adding it to our content within ArcGIS Online. Now you'll notice that I'm signed in to ArcGIS Online. And before I start publishing my data, I wanted to call this out to let you know that identity is a core concept to anything or any application that you use within the ArcGIS Online ecosystem, be that a web application, a mobile application, which we'll view in a second, or a desktop application. This identity can follow you through each one of these applications, giving you access and allowing you to take full advantage of the platform itself. So while I'm signed in, I can choose to add an item from my computer, and I'll browse to that spreadsheet. And when it's loaded, ArcGIS Online will automatically scan it and look for these spatial components. So we want to visualize each row as a point. ArcGIS is going to tell us how best we can do that. And we'll add a tag. And it automatically scanned the rows in our spreadsheet, and it found two that were using the common names of latitude and longitude, and automatically added them to automatically map them to the right location fields. So if I only had a place name or if I had an address, I could use that as well. But since the coordinates exist in our database or in our data sheet, we can simply publish that item as a service. with the result being something that looks like this. So now what we can do is we can verify that all the data made it into our feature service from our spreadsheet. We can see we have our observation counts, and it's counts by administrative areas, showing different species that may be the cause of it, and it could be wild boars, domestic pigs, or both. So that's great. We know the data is in there. The next thing we want to do is actually add that data to a map. And that can be done using this Open in Map Viewer button. And what that does is that drops you into the ArcGIS Online Map Viewer. And we can begin to visualize the data from our spreadsheet here. And now we see all the rows plotted, in this case, as small orange points. So what this does automatically is it lets you visualize the data, and then if you come into the change symbols option, we're able to see how it's represented based on the attributes in our data set. So if we want to see the data that is visualized by country, we can select our country attribute, and we can see the different colors change to correspond to the countries of where they were reported. But what might be a little bit more helpful is to actually visualize the data by the species type that was reported with the observation. So now we see that we can quickly see what species dominate certain areas of the map over time. By clicking on one of the points, we get a pop-up of information about that record. Notice that included in this pop-up is every field of the data. So most of the time, you'll want to customize the contents of this pop-up so that the information shown is clear and concise, and it's a representation of the data. Not everybody is going to want to know and see all the fields in your data set. So we can change this by going to Configure Pop-up on the layer itself. Now you have a variety of options for your pop-up. The default is to simply show a listing of fields and values like we have here. But again, we can make this more intuitive and simple using a powerful feature called Arcade Expressions. And let's take a look at one of those right now. I've pre-built a few of those to help us summarize data by the different administrative levels. So this is a simple scripting language that you can use to add value to your data set without having to modify the data itself. So here we want to return the cases, the number of cases by the administrative level for one. And then we also want to write an expression that will do the same thing, but give us a case count by country for whichever one that we clicked on. So to use those expressions in our pop-up, we'll change this custom attribute display, and we'll configure it. And then I've gone ahead and pre-made the pop-up display so that when I save my results for the pop-up and I click on the feature again, now we have a nice view of the locality of where the point is, the total number of cases per administrative area, as well as the total number of cases for the country that you clicked on. So we've turned that list of fields and values into an informative display pretty quickly using Arcade. So now that we've begun to work with our data in the map viewer, let's take a look at how this data might actually be collected while out in the field. And to do that, we're going to switch to using an application called Collector for ArcGIS. And as a brief overview of Collector, it's again part of the ESRI Geospatial Cloud suite of field apps. It's a mobile data collection app that makes it easy to capture information, accurate data, and return it to the office. So field workers use web maps on mobile devices to capture and edit data, and it's returned immediately to the office. Or if you're in a disconnected environment, it'll wait until the internet is available again, and then integrate seamlessly back to ArcGIS. And what I'd like to do now is actually give you a demonstration using my mobile device and ArcGIS Collector. It looks like Collector is coming up here. Bear with me one moment. So luckily I did prepare for this and we'll show a video that I made this morning that outlines the workflow within Collector. So now we're looking at a mobile device and I'm opening up Collector that I've downloaded from the App Store. I'll take that same web map I've created in ArcGIS Online, load it onto my device, and then I'll move to a bookmarked location which is in Poland. So now I want to add a new observation in this particular area. So I'm out in the field and I want to add a report for a wild boar. I'll go through and add that, and I'll add today's date, and I'll make sure I add in some more information, a few fields, tell the data set I'm in Poland, and then submit that to the actual data set. So it's pretty easy. That's the bare minimum. That's the easiest way to get data into the field using Collector. Now, Collector is just one of many mobile applications, like I mentioned earlier, that you can use to collect data out in the field. And going through it, depending on what your workflow is, how you have people out in the field working, there's a lot of different applications that can help you plan, navigate, understand the information out in the field, and even multiple solutions for capturing information. There's Survey 123, which is form-based. You basically take rows in an Excel sheet as a question, and you can have different controls, forms, and skip logic applied to that. And then a newer option is ArcGIS Quick Capture, which is meant for rapid data collection out in the field. As simple as collecting a button, pushing a button actually collects the record. And this is very useful in disaster humanitarian response or places where you have simple data capture and you want to make it as easy as possible for your workers to do so. So now let's talk a little bit about analysis. Back in ArcGIS Online, there's a set of services that's made available to help you join, buffer, merge, and analyze your data. Now these are some of the most repeatable patterns in GIS, and they're made available to you as a service that you can use against your data set. So one tool I'd like to highlight is the Find Hotspots tool, and that's located in the Analyze Patterns panel. This tool creates a map showing any statistically significant spatial clustering present in your data. And this tool is used to uncover unexpected hotspots in red and cold spots in blue of high and low values. In our case, we'll run this tool on our swine fever observations. So the inputs are simple, and they allow you for easy customization depending on the details of your data set. We'll find clusters of high and low point counts, and we'll count points within a hexagon grid. And then we'll leave the rest of the defaults. And then after clicking Run Analysis, the tool will take a few moments to complete. Now I've already run this tool, so we can take a look at the results immediately. The resulting hotspot layer shows us our point counts within a hexagon grid, and symbolized again with that red to blue color map. The red shades indicate a higher confidence level of clustering, and the blue showing a lower confidence level. So tools like this are easy to configure, run, even repeat if you'd like to view analysis over time. Now let's say you have a deeper need to go into analysis within the ArcGIS platform. ArcGIS Pro is a full-featured GIS desktop application with access to thousands of geoprocessing tools. Using a desktop tool like ArcGIS Pro also enables you to sign in with that same identity that you use in ArcGIS Online. So you can work with the same data and same services that we were just looking at, but then actually bring them into the desktop environment and use these tools to run within Pro. And ultimately, you can share these layers back to ArcGIS Online. This pattern of identity and streamlining access to the data is incredibly valuable to your organization. Now, I'd like to take a look again and switch back to ArcGIS Online and show you another way of how you might take this data coming in from the field and communicate that out to people that maybe are not as savvy with GIS or working in the analysis field. And to do that is as simple as saving the map and sharing it. And instead of sharing just the web map as if we've created, we'd like to put a container around it. And we can refer to that as a web application. So I'll create this web app button. And at the top, there's this option to create an operations dashboard. I'll give it a title, and I'll give it some tags for some information about how it can be searchable. And when I click done, what it's going to do is immediately drop me into the operations dashboard configuring or authoring experience. So operations dashboard allows you to drag and drop widgets onto the panel to create a layout. And what I'll do, we've got our map that came in right away. It's the same map that we use and that we styled in ArcGIS Online. But now I'd like to add a serial chart here to the map. And the data that will power this chart will come from my layers. And I'll choose the African swine fever from our observations that we were creating. Now I want this chart to represent data that's been collected over time. So I can just simply choose my observation date and check this parse dates option. And what that does is operations dashboard will be smart enough to say you have a date field, and even though you may not have chunked up your date into these specific intervals, it will help you do that. So if you want to view the data by month, by year, in this case we'll leave it as day, you can change that as well. And then you have a lot of different options and control over how information is visualized as far as colors, grid lines, even down to the actions as far as what happens when someone selects an area on this chart. Should we filter the map? Should we adjust other widgets? And I'll show you more about that in just a minute. So it'll automatically drop that widget for us on the page. And since this chart is going to be a little bit long going in the horizontal way, let's move it above the map. And we can just dock it as a row up there, give our map a little bit more real estate. And now we have our chart with a map. You can also add more pieces and more widgets. Here we'll just add a simple indicator, and then we'll just call this total count to represent the total count of cases. So this is a good start, but we don't have the time here to go through the detail of the full power and the full options of what operations dashboard can offer. So I've pre-built a dashboard using the same data that will highlight some of the great interactivity features that are easily configured. So notice as I interact with some of these widgets, other widgets on the page respond and filter their data accordingly. With this setup, I can very quickly identify not only when high counts of observations were coming in, but also where they were by looking at counts by the administrative and country areas. So I'll click on Poland, and now my administrative areas for Poland will be filtered to only show the top areas just within Poland. So I can identify these areas very quickly, narrow down where they are happening, zoom in on the map, and visually identify where these are happening. I can change to only show the wild boar reports or the domestic pig reports. I can see the individual case listings listed on the left-hand side, and I can just see the total case count based on what I've clicked on and what I've filtered down to. So we've started with almost 13,000 reports, and we got all the way down to 14 in a very specific region of Poland. So this is very powerful. It's all configurable. There is no coding involved. And it lets you bring your data to life. It gives you a way to communicate and share your data out to people that have different roles and different responsibilities. So I'd like to leave you with one of the most popular ways to communicate the message or story of your data. ArcGIS Story Maps, it transforms how we talk about our work. It combines media such as text, images, videos, and maps to engage with your users at a much deeper level. So not only can you tell people how you did your work, but you can inspire them and inform them of how they can take action as well. Creating a story map is easy. The authoring process consists of putting blocks onto a page, and these blocks represent different sections of your narrative. You can give your story a title. You can add a background image. You can add a background video. And then as you begin to lay out the elements on your page, you can see that you've got basic things like adding text, headings, adding buttons, separating out sections of your narrative to create a logical separation, as well as embedding websites and other applications that are out on the web already. Another powerful feature is using elements like sidecar and slideshow. So now again, there's so much power behind this, we don't have enough time to go into them, but what we did is we pre-created a dashboard using the data set that we had to work with. So we've got a title on the left-hand side, an image on the right, a heading that sort of sets up our story. And here we're actually walking through the story of our analysis, right? So story maps gives you the power to tell the story of how you did your work, or you can actually use this as a mechanism to inspire and have people take action based on what they're reading in this story. And it's a really rich and engaging way to do so. So here as we move through, we started looking at how we started with our data. We brought in a table in our spreadsheet, and now we're reviewing some of the concept that Eric was talking about, how we use these operational layers, how we actually bring together everything in that integrated GIS. What does that look like? And then we actually start reviewing the data itself. So where are the hotspots coming from? Where is the data being collected? And now you'll notice this is that operations dashboard. So this isn't an image, it's actually an interactive embedded feature that's part of story maps. So as your user gets through your story and comes to this section, they can choose whether or not they want to interact. And the interaction is exactly the same as what you saw me do just before in the operations dashboard itself. We've just embedded it here within the story map. And this is a very, very powerful feature that you can use to add value to your story. And I'd like to end by showing you one more example, and this is a great story map on urban Africa. So it's talking about the migration from rural areas to expanding cities. And this is something that our story maps team actually put out. So the story maps team does great work in not only building the actual application, allowing you to create these stories, but they actually have an editorial team that will go through and curate stories and create them as well. So I highly recommend you go to storymaps.arcgis.com, check out some of the stories that they've created, use them as inspiration, use them as a way to take this powerful landscape of tools, data, apps, and so much more, take them back to your office, to your community, and really make them your own. Eric, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. And just as a recap on that workflow, you briefly saw this graphic embedded in that story map, and this is really that integrated workflow that Adam just worked from, turning our tabular data, transforming it into a feature service and using smart mapping, adding to that data set with our field mobility applications, creating an opportunity to actually dive into that data and do some spatial analysis on those patterns, both across space and time in our data, and then transforming those into rich information products, such as dashboards or story maps. Before we conclude the webinar, we want to be sure to provide the necessary resources for you to get started today, or to expand your knowledge or your use of the tools that are available to you in that ArcGIS suite. For understanding how our teams within ESRIs develop within ESRI develops and shares integrated GIS solutions, particularly for responding to emergencies or natural disaster. We strongly encourage you to check out ESRI's emergency management solutions. ESRI's public safety team webinar series is an excellent resource for seeing under the hood, similar to what Adam just walked through, of how we or our team puts together emergency management solutions that configure that pre-configured integrated workflows to help support emergency responders. You can understand how the public safety team is leveraging the ArcGIS suite from field mobility applications like Collector to ArcGIS Pro to ArcGIS Online and to dashboards. If you're interested in understanding the type of integrated solutions that are available for conservation and protected area management, we also recommend exploring the ArcGIS solutions for protected area management. In fact, our colleagues David Gadsden and Dave Smetana recently hosted another webinar in our series on these solutions. So we strongly encourage you to go to our Sustainable Development webinar website to find that webinar and watch and to understand, again, and expose sort of under the hood of what is going on with the integrated suite of ArcGIS technology. And the resources here are just really the beginning. Another place we encourage you to explore in getting your feet wet with ArcGIS would be what we call our Learn ArcGIS lessons. These are freely available lesson guides available to everyone with no login credentials required to access to really explore more workflows related to real cases. Some of these are we've collaborated with partners, whether it be nonprofit or public safety organizations, to support publish workflows that they use in their day-to-day operations. In particular, what I encourage everyone to do on the website is actually on our Learn Lessons is to explore our Learn Lessons. On the website itself, there's a filter by path to understand the integrated nature of some of the workflows by exploring lesson paths. And lesson paths are very similar to that workflow that Adam just created and walked us through. In which case we can look at the integration of different tools and how they correspond and can align to help support your decision making or your collaboration with other colleagues or within your community. A few to point you to look at might be developing knowledge, skills, and confidence with ArcGIS Online. What these Learn ArcGIS paths help you do is really put together step-by-step lesson plans to really understand how you can move from something like ArcGIS Online into dashboards, creating a workflow for you to recreate in your own work. Another path that's worth experiencing would be exploring some of the field operation applications that are available to you. In this case, our Try Field Operations path is an excellent place to get started on understanding those field mobility applications, from finding assets or capturing data or to coordinating a workforce. And lastly, as Adam showed, showing that transition toward a visualization product that you might want to provide for your organization or for your community, for your constituents. So learning how to configure and develop a sense of the capabilities and functionality of our operations dashboards, learning how to create real-time dashboards with charts, gauges, and maps that help understand exactly to gain insight into or build situational awareness around an event, whether it be a weather-related incident or an emergency situation. Before we conclude, I do want to also highlight our nonprofit organization program. If those of you who are joining us in this webinar are a part of a 501c3 nonprofit in the US or a similar status organization globally, we invite you and encourage you to check out our nonprofit program, to apply to the program that will provide you access, or once you're deemed eligible, will provide you access to buy ArcGIS licenses for only a small administrative fee. In addition to being able to access licenses through this program, it's also a constantly growing and vibrant community of organizations that are doing extremely impactful work in the world. So it's also an excellent opportunity to link up with other organizations who are applying GIS to their work, or perhaps organizationally, to really help bring impact to their nonprofit. If you have any questions about these organizations, about our nonprofit organization program, please go to esri.com/nonprofit and certainly reach out to us from there, apply to the program, and we're happy to jump on the phone to answer questions and really help support how you might envision the role of GIS within your organization. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you all with the notion that the full utilization of this integrated GIS requires more than just technology. It requires a vision, and it does require a strategy for geo-enabling your projects, your programs, and perhaps your institutions. This means that establishing governance over the system is necessary to really gain the most out of GIS, and to make it most effectively create a culture of collaboration and the shared vision of the role of GIS within your team, within your organization, and within your community. And so with that, we do have time for Q&A. So if you haven't already submitted a question, please do so, and I will start to work through a few questions. And we have one here. Is ArcGIS Online free for use by research nonprofits? So going back to our nonprofit program, we certainly encourage you to explore if your organization is already a part of the nonprofit program. If you do have a contact within your organization who is a GIS user, perhaps start there. But if not, please explore the esri.com/nonprofit website and perhaps consider applying. And as I mentioned, once you're approved, and that approval typically is relatively quick turnaround, you're eligible to buy ArcGIS for only the small administrative fee. In addition to those, to purchasing ArcGIS or the licensing for either the online or desktop software, you also receive heavy discounts on instructor-led training materials, to events, to complimentary passes to our user conference, and a number of different other benefits that come along with being a part of that community. If you have specific questions about that pricing model, certainly the best way is to apply and register to that program, and we will be in contact with you and can help answer any additional questions regarding the licensing for your ArcGIS for your organization. So another question related to that question that I just received is there a trial for ArcGIS that we can try out before purchasing a license? And the answer to that is yes. So if you go to esri.com/trial, we offer a 21-day trial to ArcGIS, which we certainly encourage you to explore. And from there, if that is something that you realize the capabilities fit your need within your organization, or perhaps you want to explore possibilities of extending that use of GIS within your organization, we can transition that trial into a license through that nonprofit program. So that just to kind of extend beyond the nonprofit program, that 21-day trial is for everyone. So anyone out there, even if you're not affiliated with a nonprofit, has access to that trial. So again, it's esri.com/trial, and you can access that trial, explore, and certainly give us feedback. We look forward to hearing about how you might geo-enable your organization or the work that you do within your organization. So Adam, I have another question here for you that touches a bit on your field mobility demonstration. There's a question from a user, or sorry, from a attendee. What if we want to collect polygon information in the field, not just point information? Are there applications that can allow us to collect additional information, not just points?
Absolutely. Most of our field, if not all of our field apps now, will allow you to collect polygon and lines information. So you can stream your track as you're out in the field. You can see where you've been, where you went throughout the day, as long as see the data that you actually collected. And then what's also been very useful as far as collecting or viewing polygons or updating polygons is things like boundaries if people are out in the field. If they want to know where they need to edit a boundary, or even if they want to know if they've crossed into an area where they shouldn't be collecting data, that's always also been useful as well.
Great, thank you, Adam. We have a question here about our partnership, and specific question about a particular partner. Our partner network, and particularly if we're talking partner extending our use of partner to the nonprofit program, is very extensive. So that a specific partner that you'd be interested in, I would encourage on the ESRI business partner side. So if going back to the slide that I had showed with some of our ESRI business partners, you can actually, if you go and you can search our ESRI partner program to see if your organization of interest is a part of that ESRI partner network. Now, as far as if an organization is a part of our nonprofit program, that's something that we don't publish publicly. But I would encourage, if you have a point of contact within that organization, or if you are affiliated with that organization, to either work through your contact or inquire within our through the nonprofit program, and we can help support information on whether your organization is already a member of that nonprofit program. As far as number of nonprofits that are sponsored, and again, this is a bit of a there are different ways that we answer this, whether domestically, globally. We have numbers of users, but we have approximately 11,000 nonprofits within our organization. But that is global, and that ranges from large enterprise agreements to just a single license, perhaps for a single licensed user within that organization. And Adam, another quick question about integration and regarding ArcGIS Pro would be, can we export building footprints from ArcGIS Pro into CAD format?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that exactly, but the CAD integration with ArcGIS and AutoCAD and those formats has only gotten stronger, especially over the last year when we've formalized a more stronger agreement with them. So I don't know specifically about your question, exporting building footprints, but I encourage you to go to doc.arcgis.com, click on the ArcGIS Pro tile, and that will take you to the documentation. And from there, you can find all the information about the AutoCAD integration.
Let's see. So I have another question here, which I'm happy to kind of take a stab at. A little context: my organization is still using ArcMap, but I've heard that ESRI is replacing ArcMap with ArcGIS Pro. When do I need to make the jump to ArcGIS Pro? We definitely encourage folks to start to consider, if you haven't already started to explore the capabilities and functionality of ArcGIS Pro, to do so. There is a plan in place to eventually phase out ArcMap support. And this plan there's a tiered plan that has a relatively extended timeline. So there's no immediate rush to go out and jump ship from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. However, we do encourage you to utilize some of the training materials that we have available to our users. If you actually go to esri.com/training and you type in the query for training opportunities, my ArcGIS Pro migration, there is a wide variety of training materials to prepare users for making the jump from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. So we strongly encourage you to do that. We also have a number of instructor-led courses available. So if your organization's looking to make that transition and you want to do uniform training across the organization, our training services are happy to and support that training content to really help that transition as you move and migrate to ArcGIS Pro. And on that note too, I think that there are additional learn lessons. So even if you are not necessarily a user, perhaps you learned ArcMap in a undergraduate course or maybe a graduate course, but yet have yet to really be exposed to ArcGIS Pro. Again, this is where you can use that 21-day trial to explore the functionality of ArcGIS Pro. Between that, our learn lessons, and previous webinar content, there is in our blog, ESRI blog, there is a wealth of material out there for really understanding that functionality and really preparing yourself for making that jump to Pro. So we have one more question here: is what is the different levels of licenses to share maps and dashboards online? So within the, and I'm going to speak here specifically to the nonprofit program. For the nonprofit program, we do have a limited licensing, in which case you can either purchase licenses as a creator or as a viewer. As a creator, that gives you the access to actually create that web content so that you can create those web maps that can persist into a dashboard or into a story map. As a viewer, you have the access to, you have the login, the credentials to log into your ArcGIS organization. And through that, you can explore that data. So you can interact with that dashboard just as Adam showed. But you won't have those capabilities of creating new content and sharing it. And so for the nonprofit program, that's largely that's the licensing structure that we have available. And then within kind of the broader licensing, there is a more tiered licensing model for identifying the roles and functionalities of the team that you're working working with. And so if this is something that you're interested in, or perhaps you have an extensive team of individuals who are just collecting data in the field, who are perhaps just viewing content, or you have that GIS professional, there's a tiered model to help distribute that and arrange that licensing to meet your organization's need. And so I would definitely encourage you to explore that in more detail if that is something that you are interested in. There's a number of different resources that we can point you to help really explore that licensing model in more detail. Okay, well, I think that is all the questions that we've received. So I want to thank all of you again for joining us today. And just as a reminder, please take the time once we wrap up the webinar to fill out that survey that'll be prompted to you. And again, this is incredibly useful for us as we plan out our future webinars, our additional events, and so forth. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.